This is Cold Start.
Now, if I said the words Tartufo Buckets to you, does that mean anything?
That sounds like you were on a truffle farm and you were harvesting truffles from under the ground. That's what I would think.
Well,
Because
yeah.
tartufo means truffles in Italian.
Yeah, and then buckets of truffles.
Buckets of truffles. Or there's a dessert, too, which are shaped like the mushroom. And they're really good. They're like a little chocolate thing, like a little domed thing. So if you had a bucket of those, I'm all over that. Let's go, man.
Well, I mean, knowing this podcast, of course, Tartufo Buckets has to be some correlation with cars or automotive.
So you mean bucket seats? It
Yes.
has to be. Okay, so tartufo must be the color of these bucket seats.
You got it, right?
Okay.
So Tartufo is an interior color. It's a color of leather that's probably similar to that Italian pastry, kind of like a dark brown.
Okay, like the mushroom, really, kind of like that brownish, earthy kind of color.
Yeah, it's a great interior color. And so Tartufo Buckets has kind of become an internet meme. And I feel like part of the reason is because of how much fun it is to say Tartufo Buckets.
It is amusing, I have to say.
But also it's because it's a really rare option. Now, it's referring to the new G80 M3 that is currently for sale. They just announced the new M3 that's to replace it, but they're still selling the G80s. That's the newest generation. And there's a different seat options. You can either get the carbon bucket seats, which is kind of in line with the competition model. Everyone wants the buckets. They want the cool, sporty seats. And Tartufo is this really cool kind of rarish interior color. And, you know, it's kind of become this joke of like, oh, you have a G80 M3, but do you have Tartufo buckets?
So this is like the ultimate enthusiast option. Like if you have this in your G80 M3, that like you're at the highest echelons of M3 owner. Like on the forums, you have the little crown next to your name or something like that.
Yeah, it's like some sort of like crowning achievement to have these seats.
The
And
secret society.
yeah, like you're like the man if you have Tartufo buckets in your G80 competition.
That's so interesting. And is it because it's thought of as like the best color, or are they hard to get, or is there something about them? Like the buckets I get, right? If you're looking for an enthusiast performance car, you want to have some bolstering, you want to have something that's going to hold you in the seat so you're not flopping around when you're trying to drive fast. And to the extent that enthusiasts think the buckets are superior, we know that by contrast, the non-bucket seats, which are perfectly supportive and comfortable, they call the sofas.
Yes, the comfort seats, the ones that have air conditioning and heated in them. Yeah, you get clowned on if you have an M3, but you didn't upgrade to the carbon fiber buckets.
Yeah, so pejorative here, the sofa is the bad thing. Like you don't want to be comfortable. You want the thing that's going to hold you in place and be really uncomfortable, because that's what all us enthusiasts actually want.
Yeah, and what's interesting is so this like Tartufo interior color was and seemingly was only exclusive to the comfort seats, the comfort interior. And so when people were going on like the configurators on the internet to like build their G80s or try to order them through a dealership, there was the option for Tartufo leather, and then there was an option for the buckets. But if you selected the buckets, it removed the Tartufo. Like it was exclusively to the comfort. And I guess someone was like, hey, I want the competition seats, but I also want this interior color, which is so cool.
Yeah, I've had this experience. You know, you go online on like the configurator for some car on their site and you check one thing and it says, oh, if you want this, you can't have these other things. And it can be really frustrating because you're like, but I want this and this. And it doesn't seem like you could have those things together. So Tartufo Buckets sounds like it's one of those weird edge cases.
It's like an in-between where it's like, hey, you already have that leather color.
Right.
You already make these seats. Why can't we just wrap the seats in a different leather? And it was possible. That was the thing, is that it didn't seem possible on the internet, but there were dealerships that were able to order these cars with these seats. And because this existed in that kind of gray area, I guess the numbers, the stats show that there's only 100 sets of Tartufo Buckets worldwide for the G80.
Wow. So out of a distribution of, we're talking about probably tens of thousands of cars.
Yes. Like this is an insanely rare thing to be inside these cars. And so like if you were able to get these seats and have them in your car, you were like the crown jewel of the G80s, which this kind of brings up this conversation that I wanted to have. The Tartufo Buckets is a vehicle to have this conversation, if you will, about these specs and these options. And like, I feel like nowadays, especially with the G80 M3, there's a huge push towards having the craziest spec, having the rarest option. I kind of wanted to go back and look at where did this start and what was this journey like through M3s, and are there other examples of there being rare options that increase the value of the car? Because nowadays, if you have Tartufo Buckets, they sell for an insane amount of money on the internet. And so, like, are there other options through the different generations of M3s that increase the value of them over, say, your standard optioned M3?
It's funny to me how we enthusiasts find this way to make our stuff special. Like, we convince ourselves that what we have is somehow different than everybody else, because even though you can just go onto a lot or go to a dealer and buy a car, and it's probably the same car a lot of other people have, we want to feel individual about it. We want to feel like,
Right.
this was our spec that we picked out, and what a great spec that was. And now, to your point, even more so that there's this whole clout chasing behavior where people want,
Yes.
they're not just buying it for their own enjoyment and consumption. They're really buying it to show other people, to get appreciation from others that makes them feel better about themselves for having chosen this thing, right? It's kind of a weird clout chasing sort of a mindset behind this.
Yes, and I think that the conversation, especially within the BMW realm, which we can talk about other manufacturers that also kind of go deep on this whole what's your spec conversation and what
Right.
are the specifications? What options did you select? What color is your car? But I think this conversation within BMW and M has exploded in the last handful of years. Like, this wasn't really a thing to talk about, of like these individual colors, which have existed through M for a while, but they are now so much more prevalent where it's like, I feel like every G80 that I see is the color of the rainbow. It's a Skittle car. Like, everyone is selecting the most crazy options possible because maybe they looked at some of these previous ones that we'll talk about and saw how that increased their values. And so now that everyone's buying a G80 M3, they're like, well, I want to option it so like it'll hold its value more, or have that one rare thing that everyone's seeking for in 10 to 20 years.
It's so funny. Humans are so contradictory, right? There's this herd behavior where everybody wants to do a thing to be different from each other, but yet they're all acting the same in doing it, right? So
Yeah.
I want something that's unique. I want something that's unusual or going to be held up as unexpected. We have this mindset toward limited editions and things that are very few editions released, or a one of or a one-off or
Yeah.
something like that. And those get a lot more press. They get a lot more marketing. And face it, it's good for the brands putting those things out to have those exemplars out in the market, because it gets people excited, and they know that people realize they can't have that one, but it creates the need, the want so much. And it's an effective marketing tool. So this idea that you have the one unique or very few unique of all the ones in the world is really, I think, pressing upon people more and more every day. And the canonical example in car enthusiasts' worlds, outside BMW, if you will, is the Corvette owner, right?
Oh, yes.
We all know
it's
that.
one of one, built on a Tuesday by Gary.
Yeah, exactly. Like the narrowing that's required for what makes yours the one unique special version is so esoteric and out there that even other enthusiasts are like, that doesn't even matter. Like, that difference
Right,
is
right.
arbitrary, and you're trying to make it sound like yours is a one unique thing so that you can go bring it to Barrett Jackson or something.
Yeah, and in this whole concept of having a one of one, I feel like for many car enthusiasts is like this holy grail thing, like especially in the Porsche world, the BMW world. But yeah, the Corvette guys, they have to go a handful of steps deeper to get to that quote unquote one of one status. So like
Right.
there are examples of BMWs and Porsches that are true one of one special items of like this color with this interior option. You don't have to get that specific of like, oh yeah, this one with this package, but not this package, manual transmission, built in this year of this color. Like,
Yeah.
we're not talking about like creating a one of one of rarity, but like,
Sure.
yeah, nowadays it's kind of like there's less, I feel like, modern M3s that are just like a standard color
Yeah.
comparative to like individual. There's so many more individual cars nowadays, I feel like.
Well, everybody's an individual color in the crayon box.
Right.
Everybody's got their own individual personality, and they're trying to express that through their car in some way.
Right. So to kind of go back through the history and how it correlates to BMW and like where I think this whole drive of the individual nature came from, we have to go all the way back to the beginning of when maybe there wasn't as much of ordering individual BMW. I'm going to stick with the M3 because we get so far off on this, but like very specifically the M3 itself. This is more like the storyline of how did we get to Tartufo Buckets and how did we get to G80s seemingly everyone ordering individual colors. Like, where did this momentum come from? Because if we looked back at the E30 M3, no one was ordering special cars. I mean, the E30 M3, and this is mainly North America,
Right.
it wasn't a successful car by all means. Like, they didn't sell that many of these cars. So, like, people weren't ordering special options. It was kind of limited in regards to colors. And we talk about colors a lot when we talk about, like, the value of a car, of, like, this being limited because it's this color. And there was the evolution model of the E30 M3, but once again, like, there's not this huge distinction. Now, we get into the E36 M3, and this is where we start talking a little bit more about colors, of if you have this color of car, it might hold more value. Now, this conversation, for those of you going out there to want to buy a BMW, this might help you in terms of what has more value or what might hold its value more so.
And for those of you who are like, this BMW stuff, man, it makes my head just kind of spin. E30 was the first of the 3 Series M cars that came out. So this is in the 1980s. These cars were just first coming to market.
Right.
Fast forward to today, we talk about G80. These are cars from the 2020s. So just to give you an idea how these code names map to the vehicles. For some of us, this is shorthand. We know it like in our sleep. For others, it's kind of like, wait, did F80 became before G80? Is that right? I think so, yeah. So with that said, let's jump into E30.
So thankfully, I mean, they're alphabetical and chronological, but yeah, E30s are the 80s. Going into the 90s, we have the E36 M3. This is where we start talking more about colors, right? This is where we get Techno Violet, Daytona Violet. We get Estral Blue, Dakar Yellow. These are very iconic colors within BMW, and these colored options of E36 M3s do tend to hold their value a little bit more. We talk also about some other options with E36s, such as having lack of options,
Right.
having a slick top.
Yeah.
This is where we start talking about slick top. Well, what does that mean? That's such an unusual term.
Right, yeah. Enthusiasts come up with these funny names, and the coolest thing that you could possibly have is, like, in a way, again, seems very contradictory, the least specced out car.
Right. The less options, the better, because it means it's like bare bones, true enthusiast, none of the thrills.
Yeah, we call these the stripper edition, right? Like stripped down to the bare bones. This car has nothing on it. The slick top means no sunroof, right?
Right.
Like to the uninitiated, you're like, slick top, like the glass top of the car is just as slick as the metal. What do you mean? No, it meaning that there's no interruption or extra weight up top for a sunroof and the cartridge and the insertion and all the mechanicals that go along with that. It's lighter up top, which motorsports enthusiast racing people kind of like.
Right. It gives a lower center of gravity. What's funny with like a lot of collectability in cars,
Yeah.
the cars that become more collectible or hold their value more tend to be the ones that people didn't want when they were new, right? Because everyone of the period wanted the sunroof.
Right.
And so through the years, I mean, we come up with reasons of like the performance advantage of having no sunroof, but it's because everyone ordered a sunroof that the ones that were ordered without were the lower production cars and therefore became more collectible. So like what people hated in the period became what people want maybe 10 to 15 years later.
Yeah, exclusivity winds up being a really big thing. You know, if you're into, I don't know, trading cards, the one card that's really rare and exclusive is always held up in higher regard and more expensive than the one everybody can get in their pack that's just a common.
Yeah. So now moving into the E46s, the 2000s. Now with the E46 M3, there were specialty colors that came out just for the E46. And I'm saying specialty, I'm not saying individual, because
Right.
BMW optioned these colors. You could order them from the factory. You didn't have to special order them. It was just like, hey, we have the normal like whites, grays, blacks. Here's the couple like fun colors,
Yeah.
which people would order, and they might become like limited because not that many people want a red car or a blue car.
Right.
But with the E46, some of the iconic colors that we got were Laguna Seca blue and Amola red.
Yeah.
So these were some really iconic colors from that period. Now, there were some individual colored E46s. Now it's becoming a little bit more prevalent of people custom ordering. There were some E36s, but like no one really talks about them.
So we need to explain this. So individual here means like custom options that if you work with the right dealership and you're nice or you ask the right way, there are special customizations they can make to your vehicle. And it's limited. They won't do it to every car. There's only a certain handful of cars they'll do it to. There's sort of rules behind it, but ultimately you could do something like pick your own color outside of the usual set that are offered. And back in the day before there were online configurators for how you build your car, you'd literally go to a dealership and they'd hand you a brochure. and there'd be little color swatches of all the colors that this car came in. And those were the only ones you could get. There were no other variations until they came up with these individual or special wishes or one-off customization programs where you can then personalize your car, and they'd open up, for example, the catalog of colors that they've offered historically at BMW to make that something you could put onto one of your newer cars, right? So in this case, it's a matter of pick the color from the available set of options, and there's a decent set of options, and I like how BMW chooses these colors and they name them after motorsports or race circuits, right? Like Estoril and Laguna Seca and Interlagos and all these places Silverstone get shout outs from BMW.
Right.
Very cool venues in the world, and that's the naming scheme for their colors, which I really like.
Yeah, and so with the E46, these individual colors, which is basically factory from BMW customization. They're all from factory, but it's whether or not it was optioned or like it was an available option or it was kind of a side, like the secret menu at In-N-Out, right?
Got it.
There's the ones that are posted versus they can make other things, but you have to like know what to ask for. And so with the E46, we see a little bit more of individual coming out, but when people order individual cars of this era, they're usually throwing it back to some of those previous iconic colors. So like there were some Estoril blue E46 M3s, really cool, right? Throwback to the E36 color, or people wanting to do the Techno or the Daytona violet, the purples, stuff like that, right?
I love that.
And same thing as we start like moving forward, a lot of the individuals that we see, individual colors like within the E9X platform, that's like the 2010s, or even the F80s, the 2015s, before we got to the new recent generation, a lot of the individual colors, we're still kind of throwing it back to colors that BMW had already done.
Yeah.
But within the F80 to now the new G80 platform, I think individuals shifted a little bit in the sense of it's not only like throwback colors, but now the G80 is optioned in all these colors, like any color of the rainbow essentially, and a lot of these new colors that don't correlate to anything within BMW's history. So this whole individual color like situation really changed.
What I find really interesting is how colors that were actively unpopular at the time, like the least selected version of a car that they put out. Like you can get this color, but everybody kind of thinks it's ugly, so very few people actually chose it. With time, somehow those become the most sought out and popular things. It's just a matter, again, of this limited, exclusive, there weren't as many of it, so it seems like it's cooler somehow. And in some cases, they are legit aesthetically ugly. Like they're not something that most people are going to think is attractive, but they hold a lot of value because there were so few of them created. In the Porsche world, they call these the rare shades. Like they have entire car shows that are full of just the unusual and individually chosen paint to sample colors people put on their cars. In this case, it's a matter of like how unpopular is the color that was offered as a stock option on it, such that the fewest number of people chose it. Then over time, those become more sought out because they were so unusual and rare. And again, sometimes really ugly. Like, back to your In-N-Out analogy, like I didn't ask for the mustard grill animal style color on this car, and yet people still seem to be choosing that one.
But it's funny you mention that because, people might be thinking of, rare colors must always bring premiums, right? But that isn't necessarily the case. Like you can paint something ugly enough of a color, even if there was the fewest number of them made, people still don't want them. And there was a great example with the E36 generation. They came out with essentially, this is the rarest color, like factory option color, not individual color for an E36 M3.
Yeah.
And it was this kind of like rust metallic, I think is the best way to describe it. But the color name was Byzan's metallic.
Like Byzantium?
Yes. So like the mineral, right?
Yeah.
But effectively, it just looks like just shiny dirt. And the thing is like, yes, it's the rarest color for an E36 M3. And when you see one, you're like, oh my God, look, it's that color. But within the secondary market, they're not collectible. Like it is so ugly and no one wants their M3 that color that even though it is rare, no one wants it.
It's so funny, and there's this inside baseball where it makes things more popular and more sought out, and then every once in a while there's a case where it's just like nobody could even get their head around it. It's just hideously ugly, and it doesn't look good even with time, even with the rarity of it.
Yes.
And I remember you telling me about this, and we were riffing on some of those colors, and this one came out, and then one day I'm walking around in my neighborhood, And wouldn't you know it, street parked on the side of the road in San Francisco, just like any other car, is one of these E36s in Bizan's metallic, ugly-ass rust brown red color. And I'm like, oh my God, that's one of those. I remember shooting you over the photo. I'm like, oh my God, there's this thing. Look how ugly it is.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing is like still no one wants it. And so
Right.
like through the generations, like why has individual colors really taken off with the G80? Now, of course, there's like the market influence. Porsche does this all the time with their paint to sample, is
Right.
their version of BMW individual. And so like I think everyone nowadays loves the options to customize, but I think this is also driven by like the production numbers of M3s have blown up. Where like back in the old days, there weren't that many M3s being produced and sold in the United States. So like any color was kind of like rare. Like you were unique to have an M3, period.
Right.
Not to mention the color, where now like the numbers have exploded so much more for the G80, the new M3, that everyone's like, I have to be an individual somehow. And that's why we have this explosion of colors.
This has been so successful that from the introduction of the 3 Series back in the 80s when it was the ultimate driving machine, and most of the time when you saw it on a billboard, it was the convertible version. You'd never see an M that was really unusual. Fast forward to today where M is such a hallmark of performance that BMW wants to rub a little M on other cars that aren't actually M cars, and they put that M Performance or M
Yeah.
Sport badge on there. So these have really increased in number. They've proliferated greatly. Even just the legit M models, not just these like sort of watered down versions.
Right. And so going through the generations for North America, I try to like find stats for just the United States to kind of demonstrate the sales of M3s and how it's fluctuated, and why I think now the reason why everyone is like so like fixated on specs is because the cars, there's just so many of them. So you have to like divide yourself amongst the normal M3 owners. Somehow you got to have your Tartufo Buckets. But in the beginning, like I said, the E30 M3 in the 80s wasn't successful in the United States, and they sold less than 5,000 units. Like that's just not that many cars.
Right.
Now, when they came out with the E36, the next generation in the 90s, a little bit more successful, a lot more successful. They sold 33,000 cars in the United States.
Wow.
Now, this accompanies coupes, sedans, and convertibles. So there was all 3 options for the E36. I did a little parentheses because I am a sedan fan that of the E36, there was only 8,600 sedans of that variant.
And the E30 was coupe only.
Coupe only, right. There was no other option. So yeah, just coupe. Now the E46 M3, this is where we go back to only coupe and convertibles, but they sold 35,000 units. So we see, still an increase in popularity of the E46 M3. And then we take a step backwards, which I thought was very interesting. As we go into the E9X generation of the 2010s, effectively, it came out in 2008, but they only sold 15,000 units.
Huh.
And this accompanies, once again, coupes, sedans, and convertibles.
It's unusual. I mean, E46 is sometimes held up as sort of the hallmark, like the pinnacle of the M design.
Yes.
But now, especially what we're seeing, the E9X, E90, E92, they're starting to pop. People are realizing what good cars those were. They had that
Right.
naturally aspirated V8 engine in some of
Yeah.
them. We're starting to see a lot more appreciation for those. So it's really surprising that there was such a huge drop-off. I mean, less than half the number of E9Xs compared to E46s.
Right. And I think that this is, once again, this is kind of talking about BMW collectability within the M3 market. Weird conversation to have, but that generation, it's kind of rare. Like in comparison to all the other generations, they only made 15,000. And now, once again, if we look at the sedans, because nowadays when we talk about the M3, it is only sedans. And so of the E9X, the E90s, the sedan variant, they made about 5,800 sedans. So
Wow,
once
okay.
again, not that many.
No.
Far less than the E36 M3 sedan variant. And then as we jump into the next generation, the F80s, which came out 2015-ish era, that was 16,000 units, but this is sedan only
No coupe at all.
because the coupe is the F82. It's
Oh.
hard. It's harder to look at now. We
Right.
have M3, M4.
Yeah, they changed the name.
It gets more complicated. That's why I'm trying to simplify it as much as I can.
Yeah.
But this is sedan only. So if we look at going from 5,800 units to 16,000 for sedans, now we're back up to there's a bunch of them.
That's
They're out
really
there.
interesting. So from E9X to F80, we dropped all the coupes, but we actually increased the total number of sales if you look at the sedans that were being sold.
Right. If we were to look at, if the M3 and M4, it's the same thing, right? The
Right.
M4 is just the coupe variant of the M3 nowadays. Back in the day, the M3 used to be the coupe, and then there was the sedan variant. We don't need to get into my nerdiness about BMWs.
Or how they were sized like what is now an M2 and everything's gotten bigger over time, right?
But like if we were to include the M4 discussion here, all of the coupes and the convertibles, which are M4s as well, we'd be looking at the F80 M3 sold less than the M4 variant. So we would almost, double that number easily. We're talking maybe above 35,000 units combining the M4.
Yeah, so just for my own shorthand, right? So E9X was that V8 era in the 20-teens, like early 20-teens. The F80s was mid-20-teens. That's when we switched over to turbos. And then the G80 was the nostrils cars.
Yep.
With the giant grills.
Yep. And so for the F80 and the G80, that's where we distinguish M3 as sedan, M4 as coupe.
Right.
Where back before that, M3 was coupe and sedan and convertible.
Got it.
So now with the G80s, they haven't come out with the numbers yet, but they're already saying that within like the first couple years, the trend was far greater than the F80s. So F80s were selling hugely above, obviously, the E90s, which weirdly enough is kind of like a rare generation within M3s. But now the G80s are even further beyond the previous gen. So once again, the M3's kind of exploded. Like BMW M has been hugely successful within the last 5 years in their sales within North America. And so I think this is also why we're seeing like they're selling more cars, which means there's more people buying, which means there's more people that want to be individuals and they want to distinguish themselves amongst everyone else. And now like the individual program is a lot more accessible as well, where you can kind of order whatever you want. Where back early in the days, like individual cars may have been one of one or one of three, where nowadays when people order a G80 of an individual color, it might be one of like 20 or one of 30. Like there's a lot more people ordering these special cars.
I started really paying closer attention to BMW in sort of the E46 era. So when the E9X era came around, I'm more of a coupe guy, so I was looking at the E92s. There were a few special editions that they put out. I remember there was a Lime Rock edition.
Yes.
There were some frozen metallic paint editions and some one-offs of those that I hadn't remembered, or maybe I just wasn't paying close enough attention in the E46 world. What have they done over in the F and G world for the M3s? Have there been those same kind of exclusive variations, performance-oriented, or like one-off subsets of the overall production? Did they do special ones like those?
Yeah, so for the F chassis and the G chassis, they've done special editions. The special editions of the cars previous, of the E9X, of the E46 and E36, and E30 if you want to count the Evo and the Evo 2,
Right.
those ones were a lot more exclusive, where nowadays for like the F chassis and the G chassis, they weren't as exclusive. Like they did CSs, they did GTSs, and so, but those ones were like more accessible. They did a CSL for the F chassis, which was like the rarest one, but like it was almost unobtainium.
A lot
at
of
that
this
point.
it felt like badge engineering. They were just putting
100%.
a lot of names on cars. Like I remember that M4 GTS I was looking at for a few minutes, and it was like, okay, other than the cool paint and the cool wheels, which I can buy independently of the car, there's not a lot different about this one than the other versions. Yeah.
Exactly. We're like back in the E9X generation, like the Lime Rock was like really further away from the base M3.
Yeah,
so like,
it seemed like it wasn't just a color change, but maybe it was. It was just an orange car. I don't know. What else did they do?
No, they did. There was different tuning, different suspension. You had exclusive wheels, wing, interior pieces.
Oh, that's cool.
So like there was a lot more that went into the Lime Rock editions.
Yeah.
And the Lime Rock was also North America only.
Right.
I mean, they had the variant, I think it was the GTS over in Europe, which was the same color, but they just called the North American ones Lime Rock.
Sure.
To kind of like distinguish that.
We know that place. We'll name it after that. And again, using the racetrack nomenclature, which, near and dear to my heart. I love that.
Right. Now, if you want to nerd out on E90s, this is where I want to get into like, okay, what's God spec on BMWs?
Yeah.
Minus the colors, right? We talked about the colors.
Well, I was going to mention one other thing. So I remember in some old BMWs, they had this really like 90s interior that they called M Rain. And it was like fabric that had these like multiple colored stripes on it. And it was almost like those, that teal and purple design that was on all of the like disposable paper cups for a while that was like very 90s. It was kind of the equivalent of that for the interior on these cars, M Rain. And I remember on forums and stuff, hearing people talk about like, oh, you got the M Rain, man. That's cool. That's like the special, more exclusive version of the interior fabric.
Yeah, so getting away from the individual colors, there's other
Yes.
options with BMWs that can increase their value hugely. Now, in the E30 realm, they called it M-Tech. Now, for whatever reason, in BMWs, most M3s came with leather interiors, so it was very rare to have the cloth, which usually was the cheaper option, but everyone wanted leather in their M3. And so there were cloth variants of interiors through the different generations. All of them bring a premium because of their rarity. So in the E30, it was called M-Tech, was the design for their cloth interior. The E36 got M Rain, which looked like the M colors raining down. Really, really cool cloth.
I saw that called M Rips somewhere also. I don't know what that is.
Which might be referring to the same thing. There's another design as well that's a little bit less popular. And then E46s also got a cloth. Now there's Speed Cloth.
I was going to say Speed Cloth or Speed Tech or something.
Which that's like, it's just cloth interior, no special design. But then there was also a special design for the E46 as well that had the M colors associated with it. Within the E90 platform, there was Speed Cloth. There was a cloth interior, but there wasn't like a specialty cloth. Like it was just black cloth. Like it wasn't anything spectacular. Within the E90, that's where like other things made them rarer. Like there was other options. Like usually before that, the interior option was like the big thing in the color. Where E90s, there's like other little things that make them more collectible.
My favorite is this one in the dashboard architecture. You have to describe it.
Yes. So if you want to get into the god clout of an E90 M3, let's get into it. Which the E90, the sedan variant, is rarer than the E92.
Okay.
So if you want the rarest E9X chassis, first of all, it's got to be a sedan.
Hey man, I had an E93, an E93, which was the convertible. How rare is that compared to the E92 or the E90?
I think the convertibles were just like production-wise, I think similar to the sedans, if not maybe a little bit more. But like the coupes were the most popular.
Yeah.
Convertibles, not so much. Sedans, even more so, because the sedans were only offered for certain years. The sedans, I think, stopped in 2011, where the coupes went on to 2013.
Right. Okay, that
So
makes sense. I
they
had a 2012 coupe.
So they were produced
convertible.
They were produced for a little bit less. Now, convertibles in regards to collectability for M3s,
Not so good.
no one really wants a convertible. Unfortunately, they don't hold their value as well.
I've learned my lesson here now. You know, if you're looking for a collectible car, you don't buy one of those unless it's a Ferrari. The Ferrari convertibles carry a premium, which is contrary to every other brand on the market.
Don't they have a special name for it too?
It depends on which one. There's a couple. There's a Spider or there's the Aperta.
See, that's the one that's like the top of the line special edition. For whatever reason, they usually leave that one like last for the model.
Absolutely. And you think about, you know, Ferrari drivers versus the rest of these. Maybe there's something that goes along with that. I don't know.
So, God spec for your E9X in regards to what options do you want versus the option to have not that option. So,
Right. Beyond color.
So E90, you want the sedan. Now, of course, competition package like you mentioned with the E46.
Oh, ZHP.
You want the comp, which for the E46 was called the ZHP.
Uh-huh.
With the E90, they just call it the competition or the comp, right?
Okay.
That's usually like, that's the slang nomenclature for the E9 platform. Now, you want an LCI car, so you don't want a pre-LCI.
So that means late cycle improvement or late cycle introduction?
It stands for life cycle impulse.
What?
That's what
not
it
right.
means for BMW, but like what essentially it means is like the redesign halfway through the model year.
Weird. I always thought it was late cycle introduction or something like that. Like there's the 997.1 and then eventually they come out with the 997.2. So it's the same generation. It's just a version upgrade.
Yes, so that is BMW's pre-LCI and LCI. I'm sure it got translated from German and it just doesn't necessarily like directly translate into English.
Fair enough. Life cycle impulse sounds odd. That's got to be, yeah.
So the reason why within E90s you want the LCI car has to do with the iDrive system, which is the internal computer on the inside.
Oh, the
So-
little knob you turn to go through the nav system.
So the pre-LCI iDrive sucks. Like it's just terrible. It feels really, really outdated. It also has this really gross aluminum knob because they wanted to make it look very prevalent of like, look at our new iDrive system that we just put in the cars.
yeah.
The LCI ones, they have a black knob that's a lot more aesthetically pleasing, and the system itself is a lot easier to use. And then also with the LCI cars, you get different taillights, arguably look better. I really don't care about the looks of taillights. But you also get a better rod bearing in the LCI cars, which is a thing for BMW M3s. So you definitely want an LCI. Now, within this, here's the things that you do and you don't want in regards to options.
Okay.
Now, this gets back to the stripper spec is like holy grail in E90.
And is that like no radio, no air conditioning, no anything?
Yes. Basically, the least amount of options within a competition package you can get, the better. So,
And the idea being this saves weight, right?
yes,
Yeah.
it's more bare bones enthusiast spec, essentially.
Sure. Okay.
And so that brings a premium in the enthusiast market. So the stripper spec means you don't have navigation. So we could just get rid of the iDrive system. That also makes it a lot better.
We got it on our phones now. What do we need in the car anyway?
And so the cars that don't have the navigation, they call them single humps rather than a dual hump.
So
you-
this is the dashboard architecture thing I was relating to. Yeah. So
Yes.
like the dashboard, if you think about it as your cockpit, your console, where you have your main gauges as the driver, right? Your tach, your speedometer, your oil and water temperature gauges, your fuel gauge, kind of stuff like that. There's sort of an arc in the dashboard. That's like your little cockpit orienting area. And then so the rest of the dashboard's generally kind of flat over to your passenger, right? And there's a glove box or whatever. But so that's the single hump.
Right.
But there's certain cars that have another hump because the nav system or the display
the
itself.
screen's up there.
Okay, so it creates like a second
Hump.
hump in the dashboard. Okay.
Which, when people were optioning these cars back in, 2008, 2010, everyone wanted the navigation. Why wouldn't you want navigation in the infotainment system? Like, that's a cool thing to have. So,
Oh yeah, especially then it was like the whiz bang thing to have. Of course you want that.
yes. And so, like, single humps are really rare. Now, a single hump, one, it makes it lighter because it doesn't have the iDrive system and the navigation, but it also makes like the interior look timeless because it doesn't have this dated screen. Because I mean, like, technology advances, we know this, and like screens really date cars. But beyond that, you basically want manual everything.
Right, because motors weigh stuff.
Yes. And like, if you're an enthusiast, you want the manual transmission.
Yes.
You don't need the sunroof.
Does this go as far as like manual door locks?
No, I mean, there is comfort access, which is like keyless entry. So like maybe having that is nice, but that might be correlated with some other things like the iDrive system. So like you kind of have to pick and choose.
How about power mirrors?
So power mirrors, but there's a difference between some M3s have the power folding mirrors. So when you lock the car, it like tucks the mirrors in.
Right.
So having manual mirrors, meaning you have to push the mirror in to fold it, not like adjusting the actual mirror in the housing.
Right.
That's automatic. But
Okay.
manual folding mirrors is a thing because with those mirrors, they kind of have like the little connectors at the top. They don't actually touch because the mirror has to fold. But with the automatic folding mirrors, the top usually gets misaligned over the years. Like the motor doesn't perfectly align it. But if you have the manual ones, it always is perfectly aligned. So like that's an appeal. Manual seats. Now this is a crazy thing of like you would think in like a 2010 M3, I better have automatic adjusting seats. What do you mean manual seats? I have to pull a lever to adjust my seat. It's cool. Multiple reasons. One,
motor weight.
it's lightweight.
Yeah.
Secondly, if you're a tall individual, having manual seats, the seat can sit much lower because it doesn't
really?
have all the motors underneath it. So you sit a lot lower in a manual seat than you would in an automatic seat.
Oh, I never would have thought of that.
And this is also the same thing if you're a tall individual, having a slick top also means that
More
the headliner
headroom.
is a little bit taller. So
yeah. Or if you want to be going to the racetrack and you're going to be wearing your helmet in the car, you need a little more headroom.
yes. So, and then also the benefit of the center of gravity. So
Right.
essentially, like goated spec for an E90 is competition package, LCI, manual transmission,
Single hump,
single hump, slick top,
manual seats.
and as many manual options as you can get on the interior.
Wow.
Now, some additional things to note here.
What interior?
I mean, color-wise doesn't really matter.
Does leather weigh more than fabric?
I mean, yeah, speed cloth, you could add speed cloth onto that. That's like a little bit rarer.
Nice.
Like leather options, one that is rare is extended leather. So like it adds color further down on the dashboard. You can add that as an option. That's pretty cool. Within the E90 M3s, for whatever reason, folding rear seats is a rare option. So if you have folding rear seats in a sedan, that's like epic.
Oh, there was like a ski package or a winter package or something?
Yes.
Yeah,
And
okay.
then on top of all of this, premium sound is a rare option,
Really?
which, I mean, this goes against the stripper spec idea,
Yeah.
but not a lot of people optioned like the premium sound system in the car, which the premium sound is like the upgraded sound system. It adds speakers in the rear. Like the normal sound system doesn't have rear speakers in an E90, which is like a weird thing. But here's the deal. If you want premium sound, you have to have iDrive, which means you have to have navigation.
Oh,
So you
no.
can't have a single hump with premium sound. So you kind of have to pick and choose what livability options do you want on your M3 that can also help maintain its value.
Wow, yeah, and I guess that's one of those things that's unique to speccing out a new car where you choose the things and the combinations you can get, because after the fact, if you can find yourself a single hump car, you go put some aftermarket good stereo in it and you'll be happy all day long, right?
Yes. So you can kind of,
Although it would be pre-wired if it came from factory, even if it wasn't as good as what you would put in it, but now you have this extra hump on your dash.
right. And if you only had the standard sound system, now you got to cut holes in your door cards
Right.
to put in the speakers because there wasn't a hole there to begin. So once again, this is me nerding out on BMWs of like what is the cool spec to have or not to have. But my final note that I want to say about the E92 or the E90 M3, the E9X, interestingly enough, because like we talked about like these rare like factory option colors for the E36 and the E46, like those blues and purples and like these really iconic colors. Within the E90, for like options for colors, there's about 10 different shades of black, gray, and white that you can get, and not many color options from factory. Yes, there was a red, Melbourne red, there was Le Mans blue, and some other really cool blues, but I'm going to show you a photo, which I
Okay.
know that our listeners can't see this photo, but it's going to show you all of the color options from factory for the E90, and I want you to see how colorful it is.
So it looks like a grayscale picture with a couple of blue things on the bottom and then one red and one orange car.
Yes, and a couple of those blues are really blacks with like a blue metallic.
Yeah.
Where only in certain sunlight you can see it.
So I had the E93 in what was called Jerez or Jerez Sapphire Metallic or something like that. So it
which
was
that
exactly
had some flake in it.
Yeah, it was that almost black, but it had a little blue if you looked at it in the sun.
And this included like some of those rare like one-off colors like the Frozens that were offered for the E9X platform. And also one of my favorite individual colors. It is kind of individual, it was like special ordered. For that generation, it's called Moonstone.
Oh, wow. What's that?
Now, Moonstone is like Silverstone, but it had more of like a gold metallic hue to it rather than the cool hue of Silverstone.
Interesting.
It's really cool.
Moonstone.
Super,
Okay.
super rare color.
There's a place in the Central California coast called Moonstone Beach. I wonder if there's any kind of color overlap or there's something from there that was an origin or a source story.
There might
Maybe
be.
not.
I don't know. But
Or maybe it's just it looks somehow like luminous and they're like, okay, lunar, moon, sounds good.
yeah, like it's a really weird kind of like plasma-y silver. So if I were to like create my ultimate spec, it'd be Moonstone on top of all of those options or therefore lack of options.
Yeah.
So there's your buyer's guide to go buy an E90 M3.
Wow. So there's a lot of little things to consider. I mean, a lot of little corners you can wind yourself up into, but this is an enthusiast problem. Let's be really clear. You know,
Yes.
most people, they go to the car dealership, they're going to buy a car, they're presented with a set of options and like, okay, well, that's what I can have, so I'll choose among those. And, you know, if after that you're still not happy with the personalization of your car, you go to O'Reilly's and buy some fuzzy dice or something, and you're
Right.
now I'm unique and individualized. But no, this is going really deep into an area where there's these sort of corners that if you can figure out the secret handshake with the dealership or how to work with the configurator to bend it to your will, you can get some of these really unusual and unique combinations of things on your car, which I guess if that does something for you, cool. And I guess it winds up over time doing something in market because we've all collectively agreed that things that are more unusual or rare are somehow worth more money, even if aesthetically we don't really like them.
Right. And I think the biggest takeaway from this is that how these things influence the market value of these enthusiast cars, where, you know, picking such things as colors or what options you have on the interior really can affect the resale price. And, you know, for the E90 example that I gave you, like those cars are limited to begin with. And so like there's not many already. And so
Right,
once
right.
you start not to Corvette the problem here, but once you start to divide into like colors and, transmission options and some of these other unique things that like might be arguably the enthusiast spec, there's not that many of them. And I think like right now, what we're seeing going on with the G80 M3, circling back to Tartufo Buckets, like I think Tartufo Buckets, those will forever be something that's rare and sought after going into the future for the collectability of a G80 M3 20 years down the line. But I feel like the specialness that we used to see with the older generation cars is almost being like played out. Like too many people have access to the special menu and they're ordering it, where like it's no longer that secret special menu.
No.
Like once you tell your friends about like, oh, at In-N-Out you can order stuff animal style, it's like, well, now it's not this like secret handshake thing anymore. And
Everybody knows.
and since everyone's ordering these certain things now, like, is that going to reduce the collectability of an individual Daytona Violet G80 M3 in the future?
It's kind of the same idea as there's a lot of these bars that are set up to be like speakeasies where you walk into a place that really doesn't look like a bar. You know it, they know it, everybody knows it. If you say the secret word or you invoke the secret transaction or whatever it is, they'll let you back to the, quote, speakeasy and back. Well, in reality, this speakeasy is the individually configured car that we've now made available to everybody, and we tell everybody the secret handshake and the code.
Right.
Here's your way in. But now you feel like you've gone through some extra step or you've done something that gave you exclusive access that makes you feel better, gives you a little shot of serotonin, whatever it is. There's a human experience here that obviously people feel good doing this because there's a lot of it happening.
Yes, and I think on top of that, like, us as humans, we always want things that other people want. And like buying a car, especially an enthusiast, quote unquote, potentially a collectible car in the future,
Yeah.
you want to try to game the system, right? You want to try to spec your car and predict the market. And I think the reason why everyone wants to do this nowadays is because they've seen how certain options, certain colors of previous models of M3s, of Porsches, of whatever, that can go through the roof if they have the correct color, the correct thing, whatever. And so now everyone's on the configurator trying to be like, how can I create an M3 that's going to be the rarest one of whatever M3, so when I'm 15 years down the line and I sell it, I can cash out?
Yeah, this is where the enthusiast community has really lost the plot. We're so fixated on valuation and appreciation of cars because there are stories that people make money selling cars.
Yeah.
And the reality is that's a vanishingly small percentage of all car transactions that ever happen. But those are exceptional, so we hear about them, and they seem like maybe there's something that we could accomplish ourselves because that person couldn't possibly be smarter than me or have gotten lucky in a way I didn't get lucky. So I'm going to go out there and actively try to come up with this thing that I think in the future will have greater value because of its differentiation and its uniqueness. And it's such a weird, warped way of taking people away from their own aesthetic choices and likes and forcing them down a path to almost the opposite. Like, pick the thing you think is ugly and impractical because it'll be less likely to be prevalent in the market.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, I think that the individual and the customization that we have nowadays with cars needs to be utilized in a manner for you to create the car that you want and you're going to love for a long time, rather than trying to create something for the marketplace in 10 years. And if we do enough of the same thing, like, the specialness is no longer going to be there. For example, with the M3 nowadays, everyone ordered the competition package, which used to be the rare thing for the E46 and for the E90, kind of for the F80, but everyone was ordering the comp package that BMW basically said, like, for the next generation, they're all competitions. There is no such thing as now a base model M3 because they saw everyone just ordered the competition anyway.
Yeah.
So let's just make that and make no base model M3. So like now there's not even a distinction of like, oh, is it the comp or not the comp?
And then eventually every BMW car is an M car.
And every BMW M car is a different color.
Yes.
And so all of them are one of ones.
We're all unique and individual snowflakes. Don't you know that?
Yeah, like that's going to be the only way that people buy an M3 nowadays, where like the M3, and I guess like this is like an identity crisis for the M3 because that car was always just a subtle performance car that was usable on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And now it's like turned into this like flamboyant status symbol, which it never was.
I think identity crisis is the perfect way to describe this because the M3, BMWs in general, were sort of the anti-Corvette. The Corvette is an obviously sporty, obviously flashy, obviously loud performance sports car. It has always been that way. It has never tried to be anything else. So the M cars that have come out are this performance sporty variation on a luxury car, on the ultimate driving machine, not the ultimate racing machine or performance machine, right? This is about the overall experience. These are people we saw driving convertibles. So we've now made the M into this thing to be different than that. And yet the behavior of the M enthusiast community over time has become the spreadsheet that you're showing me, which shows the breakout of all of the M cars, how many were produced, how many variations there were in what spec and what color with what options installed. So any individual with one of these cars can go find a way to be the one of. Like,
Right.
I'm the only one who didn't get the proper color matching interior. I got a weird, bizarre, contrasting color interior that everybody says is ugly, but it's unique, so mine's different. And now, as an M owner, I'm that one Corvette owner guy just wearing an M badge instead of a Corvette badge.
Yeah, and I think like also the type of owner changed too. Like the demographic changed for
no doubt.
BMW M3s of like back when like say the E90 M3 came out, the reason why it was 50 Shades of Gray is because they were selling them to businessmen.
Mm-hmm.
Dudes that just wanted a cooler car to go from A to B, right?
And there was a thing called a company car back in the day, and like
Yes.
the 80s, that was an existing thing. And if you worked for some big corporation, there was, in a lot of German companies, they had this sort of arrangement. If you were the junior level executive, you got the Audi A4. If you were the mid-level manager, you get the Audi A6. If you were the executive, you got the Audi A8. If you were the chairman of the board, you got the S8.
Right. And like back then, because like the demographic was maybe, business individuals in their 30s and 40s,
Right.
they wanted something subtle. They didn't want to be standing out. They wanted something performance oriented because they enjoyed driving. They liked that experience, but they didn't want something in your face. Where nowadays, from the F80 going into the G80, the last two generations, is so much more popular amongst the younger kids,
Yeah.
the individuals that are on social media that want to flex, right?
The
You want to
mindset.
show off. And
It's totally different. It used to be you wanted the stealth car. You didn't want to be noticed in the company parking lot as having
Right.
the flashy car because you're so successful and you got the big bonus and other people didn't. You
Yep.
wanted to kind of be under the radar but have the potential to be in the fast performant car that doesn't look that different than the one that's just the regular version.
right, subtle performance, but that doesn't work nowadays
Right.
in a world of social media where like I need to show off my car.
There is no
and,
subtlety.
and I need to be an individual. And how can I be an individual? Oh, I'm going to order the specialized color. I'm going to get the crazy interior. I'm going to get an option that no one else can have, Tartufo Buckets.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's where it goes back to of like, if you can flex, oh, I got an M3 comp. It's like, well, I got an M3 comp too. And everyone on social media has an M3 comp. It's like, well, I got Tartufo Buckets in my M3 comp.
The ultimate throwdown, like mic drop in this world here is Tartufo Buckets. I kind of think about the Porsche equivalent of this because I spent a fair bit of time in that world, but maybe that's a separate episode. There's probably just as many of these weird little edge cases and strange order configurations to make things special in Porsche world. So maybe let's save that for another conversation.
I think, yeah, we'll give Porsche its own episode because I talked a lot about BMW in this one. It was M-Town for this afternoon, so
Yeah.
I'll leave Porsche and the Porsche world for its own episode, give it an equal amount of time to dive into the nerdiness on that side.
Some things map though, right? Your single hump configuration, there's this thing called the Sport Chrono and the 911, and there's a few things that map really closely and are parallels.
And as much as we don't want to admit it, I think BMW M guys and Porsche 911 guys were cut from a similar cloth.
They're a lot alike.
There's a lot of these similarities of like looking at spec and the whole conversation of spec of like, dude, what's your spec? I relate that more to Porsche people than BMW people.
Yes.
Where now it is crossing over into the BMW world, but that's just because BMW owners secretly want to be Porsche owners. Well, thank you for holding on and not falling asleep to me describing why BMWs are so special and how you can get the coolest E90 to flex at Cars and Coffee.
I was just surprised we didn't piss all over SMG during this conversation.
Well, I mean, manual transmission all the way. There is such an argument in the E90 world, which we don't need to get into, of like why the DCT transmission is better than the manual, which I don't think that that's going to last in... Thank you. All right, well, we're going to end this episode. Todd, thank you for your patience and listening to my BMW M rant.
That was a really fun conversation. Thanks, Silas.
And thanks for listening. This has been Cold Start.